It's going. Yeah,
And
see,
as
you're on here.
always, John Congdon.
Hello, hello.
How's it going, guys?
It's another week, Thomas. Another week.
Another hot, exhausting week.
Hot, exhausting week. What is with you complaining about the heat?
It's record
one
temperatures
moment
here.
You're like, oh, it's so cold. It's snowing. Oh.
Yeah, cozy. That was cozy, not cold. It was wonderful.
Whatever.
Now it's 88 degrees.
What have you guys been up to this week?
I got a new phone.
Did you get your S9?
I got the S9 Plus, and I forgot that it's like the flagship of Samsung's line right now.
Mm-hmm.
And comes with really nice headphones, and it's really fancy and awesome. But I did not realize how out of touch I was with phone technology.
Really?
Because I'm way
Really?
out of touch.
What's it do that surprises you?
The Note 4 was one of the first, I think, to have a fingerprint sensor on it. And if it wasn't one of the first, it had a really early version of the fingerprint sensor. Basically, didn't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
You had to slide your thumb across the thing several times before it would figure out who you were. And this thing, I accidentally touched the fingerprint sensor, and it's recognized my fingerprint. Like, it's just boom, real fast. And then it does the facial recognition. So my unlock code for my phone is just looking at it when I unlock it. It flashes the red light at me twice, and then it's unlocked. It's amazingly fast. And then it has iris detection as well. So it does like eye pattern based unlocking.
You are like way out of touch. All that stuff is so old.
Yeah. Well, and see, my phone LastPass for my Note 4 did not have support for the fingerprint sensor. So now LastPass pops up. I just put my finger on the fingerprint sensor, and it gives me my password back, which blows me away.
Yeah. Now the corporation Samsung has your fingerprints.
Yeah.
If they ever want to frame you for murder.
So that's the other side of this, though, is that when I got my Note 4, it had the App Store on it. It had the Google Play Store. And that was it. This phone has 3 app stores.
Yeah.
Sucks.
They have that Samsung one. Yeah.
The Samsung App Store, which randomly installs stuff I don't want. And
You
the AT&T
have
App
no
Store.
control over it. Yeah.
Right. And then the AT&T App Store, which randomly pops up notifications for stuff I didn't know was installed, like Security Checker and Backup Automation Assistant. And like I for the first few days, I just kept getting new notifications of things I did not want and had to find to uninstall or remove or disable. I've got it finally to a state where I'm not getting any more of that stuff. But I mean, it took me 4 or 5 days to get it configured so that it would stop with the stuff I just absolutely didn't care about.
That's why I switched to the Pixel. There's all that bloatware.
I was about to say that. I was like, that's the argument for the Pixel right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to me, that's the argument for the Pixel. It's just that I couldn't pay it all in one payment.
This podcast is brought to you by the PHP Sniffer, gifted to me by my friend and lover John. I mean, friend.
Very nice.
And lover of Scotch, John. We will be drinking our Few Bourbon Whiskey, which is part of my flavor sample pack that I got in this week. So we'll see how that goes. This is a new one for me. This is my Lagavulin, and it's not Scotch. It's whiskey, which is Scotch is whiskey.
But not all whiskey is Scotch.
Welcome
you
to
guys,
Eric's drinking episode.
You tweeted out this episode. Listen to some overworked developers. Are you guys overworked right now?
Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so overworked.
What's going on?
We have a client that's really wanting to push their products kind of to the next level. I mean, they're in a very competitive market, and they're trying to get into a position where they can be quicker to market with new applications. So they're just kind of pushing our boundaries a little bit on how fast we can get things developed for them and to market. It's fun. I mean, it keeps things exciting. Just feeling a little overwhelmed right now because we have a couple of fairly highly visible proof of concept applications they're trying to get developed. And it's a wide range from internal management system to customer facing applications. We have a complete rewrite of a existing application that kind of has to be done. And this is the client we're building a greenfield app for now. And there's just a lot of balls in the air right now with them. And just want to kind of continue to make them happy and make sure we can keep delivering for them. So it's fine. It's just stressful. It'd be nice to focus on one or two projects at a time, but we're just not in that position right now.
John, you seem really relaxed. Is this not affecting you at all?
I'm ready to go to sleep. Exhausted.
I got a question for you guys. Are you guys familiar with Uncle Bob?
No.
No? You said no, John? No? You both said no?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, I've heard his name mentioned for years around coding development and especially conferences. He does a lot of talks and does a lot of books around coding and patterns and things like that. But if you guys haven't heard of him, you're kind of spoiling my my question then, because where I've heard of him for years, I just recently started watching some of his videos because people speak so highly of him, and I like the guy. I like what he has to say. I mean, he seems like a pretty cool guy. Gray beard with no beard. He's definitely been in the industry for a while. But I felt like I was missing out on why everybody was so attracted to his talks. So I was wondering if my question was going to be, am I missing, like, does he have some fantastic talk or some fantastic book that I should be reading? Because so many people talk so highly about him. And like I said, I listened to him. He sounds cool. I mean, he sounds like about a dozen other speakers that I've seen over the years. And I don't know. I was just wondering if I was missing something, or if it was worth having him as a keynote. I mean, no, not a keynote. No, I'm joking. He's not a keynote. At Wave PHP, in case you were wondering what I was referring to. But no, yeah, I was just wondering. But since you guys haven't heard of him, I guess maybe he's not as popular as maybe I thought he was. I thought like every developer knew who Uncle Bob was.
Well, now we're going to get like a stream of tweets back at us.
It looks like
you guys aren't real developers. You guys suck.
It looks like he runs a lot of courses and does a lot of outreach and education. And
right. Like I said, I listened to like 3 of his talks. All of them seemed, okay, good enough talks. None of them blew me away. Like, oh my God, I never thought of life that way. But I particularly became a fan of him when I heard his opinion on project managers, and I'm like, all right, I like this guy.
Well, I'm just looking at his Twitter, and it just seems so very, very vanilla and safe. And
I didn't even check out his Twitter, to be honest.
Sagely.
Okay, well, I apologize of taking your time. And is it Uncle Bob Martin? Is that him?
I think that's what you're talking about. Is it
Software Craftsman? Yeah, that sounds like that would be him. Yeah. I don't know. He does touch on something that we've been touching on for a while. Something I'm kind of not passionate about, but think that there needs to be some sort of solution in place, is around developers' ethics. He on one of the talks that I've seen, and like I said, I didn't I didn't make note of the talks I listened to, so I apologize for not giving you a more specific talk to listen to. But on one of the talks I listened to, he references the fact that he feels at some point developers will need to have some sort of license and be very much like doctors, where they'll have to adhere to a moral code.
I'm surprised that didn't happen with HIPAA, actually.
I'm surprised too. I'm surprised. Yeah, you know what I think is going to do it is AI. I think we're going to reach a threshold in AI where the government or somebody's going to step in and say, "Wait a minute, we can't have just unmonitored people doing this development. We have to put in some sort of regulations in place to kind of control what's being developed and how it's being developed."
I think if that's the case, we're going to see a Dolly the sheep type situation where someone's going to achieve a breakthrough, and that will spurn that kind of legislation. Although we did just have an interesting breakthrough in computer speech.
Are you going to refer to something Google did or something else?
Yeah.
What's going on with that? I've seen so many tweets and seen RSS feeds around Google and their AI offering, and I haven't caught up on any of it.
So the story is essentially...
Hold on, Thomas. John, you just relax. We'll take care of this.
Yeah, we got this. It's not about Bitcoin. Don't worry.
I wanted to listen live. That's all. The only reason I'm here.
I just want to be part of the team. All right, I'm sorry, Thomas. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he also told me I'm out of personal days, so kind of had to show up.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You're that person who wants to take a day off work but can't afford it, so you just sit in your cubicle. Fuck these guys.
He would take a sick day. He would take a sick day, but Untapped would betray him.
All right.
I think the reason it's getting attention is because it's kind of funny if you watch the video, and it's a little creepy. The creepy element. So the video that Google showed at their big conference was a Google Assistant acting as a secretary making an appointment for its user. I would say, Google, make me a appointment for a haircut. And it would call up my barber and start talking and say, I'm calling on behalf of my client. I would like to schedule an appointment. And it goes on like that. But
is this where I heard one of the criticisms about it is, and I don't know if this is what they were talking about, was that the AI tricks the person into thinking they're talking to another person by doing ums, ands.
Right.
It's not clear. Yeah.
It uses these linguistic techniques called interstitial words or hanging interstitials, things that are used to indicate an understanding of what's being said to the other person. In Japanese, it's really, really common. So if you're on a phone call with somebody and one person is talking for a half an hour straight, the other person on the line will say, hi, 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 to confirm understanding of the words, to confirm that they're still listening and that the communication is continuing the way the other person expects it to. And that same technique is being used here, where the whole crowd laughs while the stylist is talking to the AI and saying, yeah, let me look at what my schedule is here. And then the AI goes, mm-hmm. And the whole audience cracks up because AI is saying, mm-hmm, doesn't immediately make sense or feel comfortable. It's getting into that uncanny valley territory. Then there's the other issue of being called by an AI. An unsolicited call from a person is one thing. An unsolicited call from a robot can be very unnerving if it's trying to achieve something that makes you uncomfortable. Like, could you imagine this AI calls you at your mechanic's shop and says, I would like to order a pizza, and then spends 15 minutes trying to convince you, the mechanic, that you are in fact a pizza delivery man and that you must have it wrong. I mean, it's weird. We're getting into weird territory where we have to trust these computers quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's cool,
saw,
but it's silly.
Yeah. So Google had their conference, right? I mean, that's where all this stuff is being revealed.
Yeah, this is all at GDC. Or yeah.
Have you guys ever attended Google I/O?
No.
Would love to.
Oh my god. I got some of the most awesome things from Google I/O when I used to go. I went for, I forget, 2 or 3 years. 1 year we got the first version of the Chromebook, which I still have because it had the cool Android stuff on it, and tablet. First version of the tablet, which has a bunch of Android etched into it. And 1 year we got the first version of a Chromebook and one of the phones. I forget what phone it was, but
it was the first Pixel, and then the year after that they gave everyone Google.
Wasn't a Pixel. I forget. It was before. It was way before that.
I loved when they gave everyone Google Cardboard.
Yeah,
because that's like everyone's expecting like a $400 or $500 device, and they're like, reach under your seats, it's cardboard.
Hey! Well, that was the thing. That was the running joke. Is you spend $300 or $400 to attend the conference or whatever the conference was, and you got back double your money in swag.
No, it's like $2,400 now.
Is it that much now? I don't think it was that much.
Really expensive.
Yeah, it was. It's actually a really fun conference to go to. As a developer, as a tech person, so much cool stuff going on there. I wish I could afford to go to it nowadays, but yeah, it's fun. But I was going somewhere with that. Oh, so yeah, I guess they announced, and one of the things that interests me, I'm personally one of these people that hate email. I despise email, and one of the things that they talked about was Gmail. Now you've had quick replies for a while. Now it's talking about Gmail composing a complete smart reply to your emails, and I'm like, well, that's kind of cool.
and sending it on your behalf, or you get to approve?
I think you still approve it. Yeah, I think it just does like a type ahead thing from the demo I saw. Yeah.
Now, to me, that was interesting though. Someone I saw commented, this just goes to show how little actual information is in an email that we write to somebody. How much of it is just the pomp and circumstance of the English language. But I think the opposite is also true. If they're this good at doing predictive text, then they're also very, very good at breaking down the contents of emails and categorizing it to what does it mean to our customer? What is this email about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
fair point.
Emails was actually a topic of that book that John turned me on to. What was it? Deep Thought or Deep Focus or
Deep Work?
Deep Work, yeah. And one of the topics they talked a lot about was emails and what sort of stuff you should be putting into an email, basically when you're replying to somebody, and what sort of stuff you should be looking at in an email when somebody's replying to you. And it was interesting. Again, as somebody who really doesn't like email, it doesn't take a lot for me to say, yeah, email sucks. So it's interesting that it's still around and still it's not as prevalent as I thought it would be. Like my mom still doesn't use email. I mean, she did for a little while, but she's kind of dropped off. Everybody's like that demographic of users have all migrated to Facebook messaging or some other messaging platform. Yeah. So I don't get emails anymore from friends or family, to be completely honest with you. If one of them tries to get in touch with me, they'll message me on one of the platforms. So for me, I mean, email is boiled down to services I use and the little business interaction I do through email.
Some 2FA as well, sure.
I think I have 2-factor that comes in through email. Everything else is either Authy or
it should be text or
text. Yeah,
authenticator.
Yeah, but but the email would still serve as your failover or your backup to your 2FA if your phone got stolen or something.
Yeah, true.
which I found weird. I don't. Email is crazy to me. I keep looking at it and thinking this system is completely broken. Why are we using it at all? But
no,
I don't know.
Let's see. Stack Overflow.
What's this about? I saw this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We had a conversation about this. So if you're a developer, you know what Stack Overflow is. If you don't, then you're not a real developer, because most of your work is done through Stack Overflow. No, that's probably a wrong thing to say. No, but Stack Overflow has become the de facto place for developers to
Not gonna be able to steamroll over that one. He was the one talking.
Yeah, I learned to keep my mouth silent after last week, where I guess I was put in there when you guys were still talking.
Nice. Timestamp.
Hey, come back automatically. Hey guys,
Did Zencastr recover?
Zenmaster never went down for me. It was just a hangout. I didn't even touch anything. It just went away, and it said reloading, and it brought me back, and we're still broadcasting. So I suppose all is good.
So you're saying everyone knows Stack Overflow,
right? So Stack Overflow now has an offering called Stack Overflow for Teams, and we had a conversation internally at Diego Dev whether or not we saw there was a benefit to this. And it's one of those things that it's just one of those things that of course there's a benefit, right? Like everybody thinks this is a great idea, and of course I think it's a great idea. But then I sit there and look at the solutions we do have in place that we're paying for, and Stack Overflow doesn't have a free tier. It does all cost money. But we have a project management system that sits idle 99.5% of the time because our biggest client doesn't. We don't have a reason to use it for our biggest client. They have their own project management system that they want to keep us in. And although we do keep some documentation in there, nobody goes to update the documentation because, once you get over a certain hurdle of learning where things are, what things do, nobody bothers to look at the documentation again. And that's kind of how I feel Stack Overflow would end up with us. Like there'd be a surgence of questions that people would ask, and we'd get some answers to. And this is all internal. This doesn't go outside of your team. But after a while, people would just stop using it, and we would just be paying for this archive of information that everybody forgets to look at. Now, what would be interesting, if I can just so interject, what would be interesting is if there was a way for me to tie my Stack Overflow team into Google, into GitHub, into the other services I use, so that when I'm in those services, when I am asking a question, I have that resource available to me, and it's not me having to remember to let me go to Stack Overflow for Teams and see if somebody asks this question.
So let me give you my opinion of this.
Do that, please.
I think problem one, they're marketing it completely wrong. Stack Overflow is the techie branch of the entire Stack company. What is the name of the company itself? Stack Exchange. Stack Overflow has websites dedicated to gaming, marketing, sales, real estate, everything as in this same format. Now, we're used to it in Stack Overflow because we're the tech nerds that use it, but it has a broad reach. So it isn't just a database of programmer knowledge. This could be a database of marketing or TeamView or Excel cheats for HR or things like that. And look at a company that's not 20 to 30, but look at a company that's 100 to 200 employees. So you've got a database that's not just a Wikipedia, but something that's a sort of a question and answer, everyone can drop in. That's step one. Now, step two is that Stack Overflow's initial appeal for people when it launched was it has this sort of a trophy reward system. You get achievements, you get recognized for the best answer, you get credit for what you've done. And it would be very smart of Stack Overflow to say, combine our trophy system with a bonus system in your HR department to promote interaction between departments and employees. We all know that the high-level programmer keeping all the secrets to himself is a problem in our industry, that he wants to be the one everyone depends on, and his job is not as complicated as he makes it look. We've all read those stories,
Mm-hmm.
And this is a way of defeating that. This is a way of commoditizing or making a commodity of that person's knowledge so they get paid for the release of it instead of threatened with the fact that they're training their junior. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, small teams like ours, like my company, any company I've ever worked for, this doesn't make a ton of sense. But
the nice part about for a small team is it's free up to 10 users. No, was it free or $10 up to 10 users?
$10 for 10 users.
I thought it was $10 for 10 users.
Yeah,
a month. $10 a month. Yeah,
$10 a month, not per user, but $10 total for
$10 for 10 users, $5 a month additionally for each user after that.
Yeah, so on a small team, it's just a place to store data, and it's kind of cheap.
I think it's a pretty significant. And why do you think it takes such a big jump after 10 users?
Because that's their target market. Their target market is get the tech guys or get one department to test this out for a little while and then bring in other departments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's still one of the things I struggle with Slack. I mean, I'm not going to deny the benefit we have with the Slack workflow. And an argument could be made that you could do that same workflow in Telegram or Discord or a million other services. So we continue to pay for Slack, but I am always kind of on the hunt for something better and cheaper because it just seems like it's such an expense. But back to Stack Overflow, one of the things you touched on, Thomas, that whole badge system, that reward system, that is part of the Stack Overflow for Teams.
Yeah, badges.
So let me ask you another question then.
Encouraging people to use that for more than just a badge system on a website, but encourage HR to pay people for doing good work, and disseminating knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you another question, because this actually comes up with another service, and I'm constantly thinking about it, and I just don't know. It's the paranoia in me that does this, but putting that sort of potentially sensitive information about your solutions, your platform, your business workflow, your all sorts of things. Putting that in an external service, you guys would feel 100% comfortable with that?
No.
You're not comfortable, but you're doing it anyway, no matter where it's at. It's just how visible is it to the outside world?
Right. And the other service,
you have a stack. Yeah.
Yeah. The other service I think about all the time is GitHub. I mean, how much proprietary information is stored in GitHub around companies that their entire business model is the repos that they have in GitHub. And basically GitHub has all that software available to them. I mean, it's on their infrastructure. I think about that a lot. Like, that's crazy to me.
I get bothered about that a lot. I get a lot of executives saying, no, we have to have a hosted ourselves solution. Now, it's worth noting that the Stack Overflow Teams does allow you to host your own server. You can completely remove it from their...
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't notice that. Where's that at?
If you click on the Enterprise tab and then drop down, you'll see that they talk about hosting it on one of their single sign-on servers or hosting it on your own private cloud or managed cloud.
Interesting. Wow, that is interesting. Yeah. Your own Stack Overflow with unlimited teams. Host anywhere. Contact sales. Because we're not going to put that number on our website.
I'm sure it's $50,000 or something.
Something ridiculous.
But yeah, for the you buy it yourself version, you can't get you can't self-host.
But yeah, I totally see the benefit to this on a big enterprise. I can totally see that.
Oh yeah, I always think about companies like Microsoft and Apple who have thousands and thousands of employees, or thousands of developers,
and developers that just come and go like the breeze. Were you going to say something, John?
Nope.
You know the answer to that already.
I feel like he's struggling so hard. Every time he starts to talk, Thomas and I should just shut up because he has very limited words in him tonight. So we need to milk everything we can out of him.
Who was that football player who just said, "I'm just here because I have to be"?
Me.
What's his name? He was playing for Seattle at the time. Went to Oakland. I forget what his name was.
Anyways,
I got the name of the show though. It's going to be Milking John.
Gross.
Just wrote that one down. I'm sure that'll be good for a couple of clicks.
I have a big story that I want to get into today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Are you guys prepared? Are you guys prepared for a conversation that's going to take up the rest of the podcast?
As long as it's not this free will isn't real bullshit, I'm willing to have any conversation.
Who controls glibc?
Why are we having this conversation? You're obsessed by this story, aren't you?
I am very much so.
I don't know if I cared that much about it, but let's have the conversation. All right,
what conversation is it to have? Who cares?
Let's explain the article, the post that you're referring to, and let's talk about it a little bit.
Richard Stallman, the creator of the GNU project and generally considered the creator of everything Linux except for the kernel.
Very, very militant in his belief in freedom and open sourceness.
Yes, as well as in societal freedom and open sourceness. He believes people should be free as well. Some time ago in the glibc, which is one of the compiling engines for Linux, in the documentation he left a joke about the abort method. The joke was about how the government will try to tell you when and you can and can't use this method, but in reality it is free for you to use and it is at your own discretion, etc., etc. This joke has been in the development documents for like a decade or longer. Just sometime in the 90s, it says. So almost 20 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with a little addendum to it that says, RMS, Richard M. Stallman, wrote this joke, do not remove it.
Mm-hmm.
April 30th, someone removed it, and the push for the removal of this joke was accepted and pushed out to the official glibc repository. And a lot of people got really upset and said, this is Richard Stallman's project. How dare you, when he says don't remove it, it isn't offensive. It's simply a criticism of government, et cetera, et cetera. And the person who wrote the original patch to remove it said, it's not helpful to the documentation. It's wasting space. This isn't a joke book. This is a documentation on glibc.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of controversy came out of this, but basically everyone started saying, well, this isn't Richard Stallman's project anymore. He hasn't been involved in it for years, and it's being maintained by a large number of people who have permission to do access to these repositories and push out to the master branches and things like that. And so Richard Stallman shows up and says, No, this is still mine. Just because I let you guys maintain it doesn't mean it's not mine. It's still mine.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a sort of an interesting position for the nothing is mine, everything is open person. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I understand.
He's sort of against his own ideology by saying, "This is mine, put it back."
Well, yeah, he's always been one of those. Everybody's free to have their own thoughts as long as their thoughts agree with mine, sort of person.
Right. And he's not the biggest dick about it, but he is.
Yeah.
He's
and I think, all right, so let's play devil's advocate a little, and let's apply this to something that we probably feel is a little bit more meaningful. So as far as the libc stuff goes, nothing changed, right? I mean, it remained removed. So the question, yeah, it caused a little ruckus, and I mean, it's a libc, right? I'm sure that community is not exactly, bubbling with controversy. So any little thing that they could get their hands on, I'm sure is meaningful to them. But let's take this, because this I see a lot of similarities with this and let's
Laravel.
say the Laravel project. Yeah,
that's where I was getting with this, because of the last paragraph of this article. Each project has its own governance model. The authoritarian leader model is quite common in this space, with many projects subject to the will of a hopefully benevolent dictator who can decide to accept or reject any change. Sometimes that model works better than others. glibc itself improves its process and inclusiveness considerably when its single leader was replaced by a more consensus-oriented model.
Mm-hmm.
I find that a very damning statement for open source. Because
why is that?
Because I look at open source projects and I don't see open source anymore. I see exposed source.
I don't follow.
One of the great ideals of Richard Stallman is that the community owns it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that he has his own fallibility and sort of mortality in mind when he thinks of this kind of stuff. Knowing how he's spoken in the past, he says a lot of like, well, keep it in the docs until I die, and then you guys can decide what to do with it, but I just want it there for now.
Mm-hmm.
But he's lost control of this project. It's not his project, and the joke that he wants in the docs isn't there because he doesn't have permission to it anymore. And that to me is
I don't understand how that. I don't understand how that adds any confusion about it. This is the epitome of open sourceness,
right? To me, this is the epitome. But then I look at Laravel, where it feels like exposed source, where yes, you can read it, but unless you follow the ideology of the creator, of the benevolent dictator, your code's never getting in the main branch. And there's no way to even get the authority to get in the main branch. So what happened after I read this is I looked up what the update process is for glibc, what the schedule is. They have a lengthy list of rules on how you become a contributor, and then how you become a main branch contributor, and then how you become a voting authority, and then how you become a package authorizing, push authority.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have all of these stages, all this documentation about who can contribute and when, how the community gets together and decides who the maintainers are and what the content is going to be and how voting occurs. And it's fascinating. But then you look at projects, and I hate to pick on Laravel, but I actually am lying by saying that. I love picking on Laravel. Laravel has no system in place for any kind of thing like that. And it became a really big problem two weeks ago.
Well, let's be a little fair here. So first thing, Laravel, they're not the only ones that have a benevolent dictator. Laravel is not the only one that has a benevolent dictator. I think Python is that was the one that I forget that person's name as well. But there is a a path to contribute to the project, but like you said, there's a choke point. There's not a consensus of a voting majority of 3 people saying yeah I like this patch and 2 saying no, and it goes in. It's one person saying yeah I appreciate the 2 weeks you put in creating this patch, don't particularly care for the approach you took, gonna toss it to the side. But I guess my point being, there is a way to contribute to Laravel without being a core maintainer or being Taylor. So you mentioned something 2 weeks ago. What came up 2 weeks ago? I don't remember this.
Taylor was put in the hospital for surgery.
Oh, right.
Sudden, unexpected surgery.
Yeah, there's enough people in the community, I think, and I'm sure there are other trusted inner circle people to Taylor who have the keys to the kingdom. Where
sure,
but even if they
Thomas, hush.
I'm gonna go get a beer. I'm gonna go get a beer. I'll be right back.
What? You're gonna do what?
You just keep going. Just keep going, John. I'm not gonna interrupt John again. Just keep going.
Nope. Killing me.
Oh, you're killing me. You are killing me tonight, Mr. Congdon.
I told you, let me know earlier.
I'm not letting you off.
I was waiting for him to go get his beer.
Come on.
He always does.
All right, I'm moving on. For those who are watching the live stream, because this won't make it in the final, I am moving on to Koval, a single barrel bourbon. And it's from, I don't know, it's from somewhere here in the U.S. because it's a bourbon. I forget. Let me see if my other note has anything more here. Koval single bourbon, 47%. It doesn't say where it's from. I don't know. Oh, hey, Thomas is back. Hey, Thomas.
No, he's not. Not back.
So there, I got 2 down. 2 out of my 3 here. I think I still have one of the ones in my original one still. Japanese. I sure do. I still have a Japanese whiskey here. Dang, man. I should have started with that, I guess.
You're letting it age.
That's it. Like me. I'm aging.
Oh.
Thomas, are you back? Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, let's go.
There you go. I was saying that's not a good example, because if something happened to Taylor, even if nobody else had push rights to his repo, somebody else could be able to take it over just with a fork and then keep it going.
Well, a million people could. That's the thing, is that it loses its authority, and you can take over the fork on GitHub, but you can't take over Laravel.com.
No,
but John's point is, if you're not happy if you aren't happy with the direction that a project like Laravel is going, you have, because it's open source, you have the ability to fork it and maintain your own version of the project. You know, if you want that consensus, that board of people voting on what features go in and what features don't, then you fork it.
That's why I'm worried about the terminology here, though, is that to me, open source project means implementing features that go out across the board, improving the software globally. If I find a bug and decide that it's just going to be in my branch and fix it in my branch, that's not open source. That's not how you do open source. You have to contribute. You have to grow the community and help the community. And to me, the way Laravel and a lot of other projects like it are run isn't open source, it's exposed source. It's open to contribution, but it's not open in the truest sense of what open means in open source. And I guide you to the
well, what's an example of something that passes?
This stuff. glibc, where the community took it away from the creator and said,
But there's
we
still
love
a
you, but you're
limited number
wrong.
of people, right? You still have to go through a process to get your contribution accepted.
You have to build consensus, and they have on the sourceware.org/glib/wiki/consensus page, you can see how consensus is built. So if I wanted to become a player in the glibc community, this is a guideline on how to do it. And if I wanted to go from nobody to someone who has push control over the master branch, I could. Because it's a meritocratic document.
But there are pluses and minuses to that approach, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I do think that Laravel's open source. I get what you're saying by the exposed source, but it's not. It's open source because, again, you can fork it, you can create your own version of the project, and that is not completely unheard of in our world. I mean, that's how we ended up with MariaDB, right? It was the MySQL developers after Oracle. They decided,
That's a little messier, but yeah.
It's a little messier, but it's a perfect example of where they said, hey, this is an open source project. We're not happy with the governance model put in place to maintain the existing project. We're going to fork it. We're going to put our own governance model in place, and we're going to maintain our own branch. And
that's how Emacs, to go back even further, Emacs did that as well. Emacs versus Emacs, and how they branched off because of disagreements from Richard M. Stallman and other open source developers. And that works, but you're gonna murder me when I say this.
Okay.
I feel that when you start getting into the I'm enterprise software situation.
Why do we have to bring this up? But wait, I actually wasn't done.
That's where I'm at in my headspace.
My point, though, it wasn't done with my point.
I know
you can't argue for better or for worse. Again, you started down this enterprise path. Why is my light changing colors? Did you guys see that? I think
Nope.
I think somebody's trying to get my attention.
Check the chat. Anyone, somebody in chat changing colors?
I have Slack set up so that people can change the light color of my office. With Laravel, we've had this discussion in the past that its bleeding edge breakneck speed is very anti-enterprise, but it is one of the features of having one person controlling, or a very small group of people at least controlling the release cycle of the project, where when you get into these projects that have these bigger governance models, I like to look at CakePHP because I'm a fan of it. I think it's very well organized. I think they have a very good open source model in place, but their release cycle is nowhere near on par with what Laravel's is. And with Laravel and their quick releases, as quick as it is, the patterns, the philosophies behind the framework stay very consistent because they're all coming from a very select few, if not one person, maintaining the project as a whole. So I see benefits.
I see that same thing, but we're at week 19 of the year,
mm-hmm.
and Laravel is at the 21st tagged release of the year.
So they released
more than one a week.
This is what I'm saying.
Is excessive. I mean, God, could you imagine?
And we've been with our Greenfield app. We've been trying to stay current with that. Unfortunately, most of the releases are pretty generic. I mean, they're not very impactful. But I get what you're saying. I totally agree with you. That's a lot of releasing, and that again is one of the reasons why they're not positioned to be an enterprise solution. There are shops that will see that as a drawback, and there are shops that will see that as a benefit. But those are the different open source models. But to discount it and say, well, that's not really open source I don't think it's fair. It's very much open source. And if you don't like the governance model that they have on it, and again, I think we can all agree that we have some disagreements with it. But if you really don't like it, if you think it's costing you business, or you think it's detrimental to the community, then you create your own version of it.
Yeah, I just my issue as well is that open source means such a generic thing right now, where what's your license really is what matters. There's 20 Creative Commons licenses, 2 GNUs, GPL, Berkeley. Those are all quote unquote open source licenses, but they have such a significant difference between them and what they mean. And I don't know what licenses Laravel under.
I think it's MIT, isn't it? It's on their. Actually, I don't even remember now that I say that. Let's look it up together, shall we?
There's no license file in the directory, in the root directory.
There isn't?
But they reference, so they reference the MIT license.
Where's he reference it at? You're right, I don't see a license in the actual
There's no license
project
file, but it's in the README MD.
Yeah. Yeah.
And MIT is my favorite license, man.
That's the one to use. What's funny is, if you remember 20 years ago, or no, not 20 years ago, that'd be 1996, the early 2000s, open source was such an evil word. And now it's like, if a company isn't offering an open source solution, people are suspicious about them.
I was surprised by some of the companies that are providing open source now. I saw a really interesting project.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at whose GitHub this project was on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on Square's GitHub. Square is the payment platform.
Mm-hmm.
They released a project called Sudo Pair.
Yeah, I saw this. I saw this come down my Twitter feed. Yeah, explain what Sudo Pair is.
Normally with sudo, you have permissions in the sudoers file, and it lets you run as root. This just replaces that with a network authentication where someone who does have permission can grant you permission to execute the query that you've requested to execute. So,
and it's not only grant you permission, they monitor what you're doing as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's cool. It just does it like over an SSH tunnel. So it's pretty cool. What's funny is you work with people who, you might even work with people who are pretty familiar with the command line, but you introduce them to something like Tmux and you show them how to share a screen, and it blows their mind. It's like, hey, how are you seeing what I'm typing? I'm like, because I'm on the terminal with you.
Well, and like the console's always been more advanced than the GUI. The GUI has always been behind by a little bit. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that the console has functionality that the GUI doesn't have yet, or has functionality that the GUI does have.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this and I was amazed that this package didn't exist until now. That no one had thought, hey, a peer authorized sudo might be an important thing to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But I mean, it would be kind of weird to coordinate, right? Because you'd have to make sure that other person's on their system. And
what I couldn't tell from watching the video or the little screen share they had on there was it looked like when you started the session, you had to copy and paste something to put in another terminal. But it looked like they were logged into the same user, which was...
It was the same user. He was giving a terrible use case.
Yeah.
A non-existent use case.
But if I can just copy and paste that into another terminal of my own, what's that really accomplishing?
Well, he was using an account that had permissions on both, and he was on the same machine, and he was just doing it as a bad demo.
Okay, then I didn't follow it clearly. Is it like certain users have the right to be like the admin or
Yeah.
the engineer in that case?
Yeah, so one user has actual sudo permission and the other user has request sudo permission, and it goes to someone
okay.
and it goes out to someone who has actual sudo permission, and they pass it through.
Gotcha. So that person could do a sudo session themselves.
Yes. He gives a very bad example in that video.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if it were me and you, what if one of us had to watch the other at all times?
It probably dings you or something, throws a notice on the screen. You can probably bind it with push or growl or something.
No, but with that example you were saying is, I ask you for permission, but you already have sudo access, right? Now you can do anything you want on your own, but there should be a rule where you can't do anything on your own. You have to ask somebody else.
No, I'm the admin. You have to ask me permission, and then I grant it to you.
Right. What if we're on a team together, just me and you? And we always wanted to make sure the other person knew what was going on.
Oh,
you can't do that in this situation.
No, I don't think that's for this. I don't think that's this. I think this is a manager-employee hierarchy thing.
Yeah.
Especially like the junior dev we were talking about earlier. You know, you have a junior dev, a junior DevOps guy or operations guy. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I mean, very limited use case, but probably worth having. Good to know it's out there.
Can we talk about Microsoft for a few minutes?
Sure.
I'm so in love.
Talk about?
I want to start with your article here.
Okay.
This is.
Go ahead.
I mean, this is the beginning. The beginning of Microsoft sort of fixing just some of the dumbest stuff of years and years, 20, 30 years. Notepad supports the Unix command line break now.
The carriage return.
The carriage return. So now Notepad can read any normal file that anything else ever could, and Notepad was the only one that couldn't.
Yeah, so for those of that might not understand what we're talking about, if you've never had to work on a Windows machine and edit Unix files, then consider yourself lucky. But Notepad does a end of line at the end of a sentence to do like a carriage return that, like Thomas said, every other reader understands the carriage return, but for some reason Notepad did not for years.
For decades, for literally 30 years.
Yeah. So now you can open up these text files that are off a Unix system. You can open up a Notepad and actually read them.
Big announcement. Along the same lines, they have added new functionality to Excel. You can now use... Yeah, really. You can now use JavaScript custom functions, essentially turning Excel into HTML tables. So now, if you know JavaScript and are forced to use Excel, you can use JavaScript in Excel. It seems like someone came up with the idea and said, yeah, but that would make Excel obsolete. That would prove how obsolete that it really is. And they said, yeah, but do it anyways. So now user-defined functions can have JavaScript, Power BI, custom visuals. I mean, they've got this whole page about this new functionality, and it really just says reports. Graph reports are pretty in Excel now. One of them's just a fucking word cloud. So you can see where they're focusing their attention, because word clouds being the most important way of delivering data. It seems like Microsoft's getting ready to throw up their hands and say Linux is the way to go. Like, we can't do it anymore.
I keep thinking that's about to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Feels real close though, and especially with the way things are going with Windows 10, people are getting ads in their start menus now.
What? Seriously?
Yeah, there's recommended apps in your start menu. There's apps that every update, King makes Candy Crush and crap like that. Those games are getting downloaded as part of Windows updates.
It's nasty.
It sucks.
My mom got a new Windows machine, and I hit that little start menu, and I'm asking her, I'm like, why do you have it was one of these Clash of Clans sort of games. I'm like, why do you have Clash of Clans on here? She goes, I don't know. It's always there when I click that button. I'm like, what? You've never...
Candy Crush is installed as part of Windows 10. Which is so weird to me.
So it's a new Minesweep.
There was a fascinating article on Reddit where somebody had said if you type in FireF, F-I-R-E-F, then it recommends Internet Explorer. Even if you have Firefox installed. You have to type in Firefox to get Firefox to highlight to be the first choice. And a bunch of people...
Oh, you're saying in the little start menu?
Yeah, in the search.
When you're searching for an app?
A bunch of people in Poland and Europe said, that's not happening to me. And it turns out it's because there's laws against that in those countries. So that the international editions just bend the laws as much as possible. It's such scumbag behavior from an operating system company. I find it so strange.
Trying to stay relevant, and they've done a lot. They've opened up. They've gone open source on a lot of stuff. They're being friendly to developers again, but yeah, it's weird. They're trying to, for a company that's so incredibly dominated the market for so long. It's strange to see them in a position of them trying to find their relevance now. It's so weird. I remember, again, back in the day when I was working in enterprise and we had developers, there being a very, very straightforward, and this was for external apps. Have it run in Internet Explorer. We don't care if it doesn't run in Firefox. We don't care if it doesn't run in Opera. Nobody uses those browsers. Just, use Microsoft's patterns and all their VB stuff and let it work in Internet Explorer. And that was the mandate for years. It was nothing about, let's make sure it's available on all the browsers out there. It was just Internet Explorer. It's the only thing out there. There really aren't any other browsers. And now you're at a stage where they just don't have the relevance anymore.
And I remember when there was the lawsuit about including Chrome or including Netscape with Windows, and people were saying, well, that's so obscure though. Why does anybody care what's included with Windows when you can download something? But this is why. Mm-hmm. Because we had to get to this point where we had to say that there is no standard, that everyone has to be open across the board. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, Firefox, I got an email that Firefox just updated to version 60, the brand new CSS engine. So my first action was to contact my front end guys at my company and say, ha 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 ha, hey, look at our website on Firefox now. Why doesn't it look right?
Yeah, you talk about Laravel's quick release cycle. Firefox, they're maniacs, man. They're just releasing weekly.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know, guys.
I do love Laravel still, though.
Oh yeah, I had a little competition going with somebody yesterday. I told him I could create we were talking about that Stack Overflow. I told him I could create an FAQ site in like 30 minutes with Laravel. I got close. I got to Algola.
It wasn't just a front end system though. What about the whole searching and
That's
the
where I
fuzzy,
was.
fuzzy searching?
I got to Algola. I was implementing Scout, and I got to configuring Algola, and then I lost interest.
Oh, you should have handed it over to me. I'm an Algolia expert.
Are you? Yeah. We were at the meetup. So we had a meetup last night. Great talk by
Oh, that would have been really good for the beginning of the show.
Favorite speakers. Yeah. Daryl from our Diego Dev group and CTO of Donation Match, which is a sister project of Diego Dev. I have to keep reminding Daryl every time he brings up Donation Match. But yeah, he did a talk on Sentry and logging, and logging is just one of those things I completely can geek out on, but like when I'm working on a project and trying to get things to market, I don't have time for that. Like, I love logging. I love all the cool things you can do with it, but it's such icing on top of the cake. It's like that is so far from anything I'm worried about right now. Let me get this functionality done first.
Just make sure you're GDPR compliant.
Right. Yeah, and that was actually one of the cool things about the Sentry solution is it allowed you to filter things and all that. It filtered a bunch of stuff by default, like passwords, and I'm sure things like social security and things like that. But you could customize it to look for and filter other things out of your log files. All right.
But there's an interesting on the whole filtering. There's actually an interesting conversation around if it's being sent over the wire. So is there a way to block it, before you even send it to Sentry? That way they don't possibly have it in their log somewhere.
Which was an issue with Twitter this week. Or last week.
Yeah.
And we covered it on the podcast, so I shouldn't have brought it up.
No, it's relevant. It's good relevant.
Yeah. How to do logging. Why not?
Okay, I've tried to end this show like 3 times now. You guys keep going, so I wasn't going to do
Video games?
it again.
Did you say something about video games?
No, we're done.
Did you see Thanos in Fortnite?
Yeah, it's not that impressive. It's cool. It's a nice crossover.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a Fortnite guy.
Uh,
I'm a couch gamer. I do joystick. I do controller stuff.
The Fortnite's on PlayStation?
Yeah. You can't play against people on a mouse and keyboard, though.
Well, I think you can.
You can't practically. It's the platform is Microsoft and PC versus PlayStation. So the PlayStation players are only on the PlayStation platforms.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I know so.
I know you're wrong, actually.
I'm 100% correct on this. PlayStation you're not playing with PC
you're 112% wrong on it. I know for a fact. I've talked to Bill Gates.
That would be Microsoft again.
Yeah.
The Microsoft platform is open because they're in second place in the console market. PlayStation is in first place, and so they get to control the openness of their platform.
But and it's on mobile too, and the mobile people play cross.
No, the mobile is just against mobile, and that's owned by Tencent, which is a different company altogether.
So wrong about all of that. I'm sure of it. I'm going to look it up. Let me see if I can find it, because I like proving you wrong.
There's been interesting developments in the gaming industry lately where people are being convicted of cheating and hacking in video games. Most recently, a World of Warcraft DDoS attacker got a year in jail, but the company Epic that owns Fortnite is actually suing a 14-year-old hacker and his parents for intentionally disrupting the marketplace that is their game, and they're winning. And there's a lot of interesting conversation coming out of this saying basically hacking is no longer an innocent thing. Hacking is disrupting billion-dollar industries. And that video games, as much as people want to brush them aside, are one of the largest entertainment industries in the world right now. So we're seeing interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm not much of a gamer, so I wouldn't know.
Now you just watch them.
I do. I am a little YouTube junkie and watch those guys watch these guys play.
I got PlayerUnknown's mobile on my phone the other night, and I won my first game and then immediately uninstalled it.
You're like, that's it. It doesn't get any better than this. I'm done.
Well,
Walking
it's either
away.
yeah. There's two scenarios. Either I'm at my peak already and I've proven everything I need to myself, or this company that owns the license, Tencent, is notorious for the old bait and switch, making you feel good immediately and then lowering the success rate until you pay money. And I'm pretty convinced that that's what happened. That I won
You
the
don't like
game.
paying money, do you?
I don't like being told that I'm playing against users when it's actually bots whose job is to let me win. Which is probably
Is that what you think happened?
probably what happened. Because Tencent is known for that kind of behavior. Like they put the gambling in the whole loot box system. They really know what they're doing when it comes to psychological manipulation.
Fair enough. Never understood the whole loot box thing. I remember that was a TF2 thing, and everybody got so excited about it. And it's like everybody wanted to trade me. I got on TF2 on the Mac when it was first available, and as a reward, you're given iPod earbuds for your character. And I had so many people begging me to trade me for those earbuds. I'm like, they literally do nothing. They have absolutely no impact to your character on any level. They're not really functional. They don't do anything. But everybody wanted the earbuds.
Yep.
Easiest $45 I've ever made. What?
It's okay. I know for a fact you've made twice that much for much easier.
All right.
What a great episode. Thank you so much for listening.
It was a good episode. Told you guys, I'm curious about what last week's going to do, but our week before, the 103, the Longhorn one, all sorts of tweets and conversations went out there. I had forgotten that was what that show was about, our trip to Longhorn. And then I was kind of disappointed none of the guys reached out to us and said, hey, we didn't fire you yet. You know that, right? But then again, maybe they didn't because, they kind of did.
Yep.
You fired yourselves.
All right. I think that's it. That'll wrap up the show this week. We had to drag John through this one kicking and screaming, so we should let him go to bed, I guess.
Done. So done.
I bet you with very little effort you could edit him out of the entire episode.
This is thanks for listening to episode 105 of PHP Ugly. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly. Good night, Ted Nugent. In our chat. I like Ted. I was trying to go visit. We were trying to arrange to visit each other when I was up in where was I? Up in Vancouver, but I just didn't know what I was doing and we couldn't coordinate. All right, stop your local recordings.
Yeah, see, Fortnite won't play on Xbox Live.
I didn't say anything about Xbox Live. I said Xbox and PlayStation and mobile all played together.